Welcome to Race Talks with Retonia. This is Retonia Bashir. Today we're going to have a special guest, but we're also going to be talking about the myth of an angry black woman. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Oh, say, can you see? That's what they want us to believe in so blindly. But we got to take a stand and start talking about the truth and the facts. So, let's chat. Race Talks with Retonia. Race Talks with Retonia. Yeah, Race Talks with Retonia.
Hello, welcome back. We're going to get right into it. I have a guest with me later on, but I'm going to talk just a little bit about the myth of the angry black woman. Have you ever wondered where did that come from? How did we begin to have this false narrative about black women, especially in America? Well, it started way back during slavery time, when in the first era, when they began to have theater. They began to decide that they were going to spread this narrative of black women, and on stage they used them, and it wasn't a black woman, of course, because you know black women could not perform during those times, but there were white men who would dress up as a heavy set, big-lipped, loud black woman, and she also had a docile, timid black man who she was lording over. Do you remember the show called Amos and Andy? Well, if you don't, it was in the early 1900s when this started, and they began to just share that the satire of a black woman was very angry. They characterized her as being neck-waving, hand-waving kind of lady who would be so loud that no one would be able to get a word in edgewise. We all know this because we see this portrayed even today in our characters on television. Do you notice that there's always an angry black woman? No matter what, if there's a comedy, no matter if it's a drama, no matter what it is, if there is a black character of a woman, and there may be a beautiful black woman on there, but they're always going to have the narrative of one of those women being angry and loud and disrespectful and contentious. In the beginning, in the early 1830s, you would see women, black women on stage. Of course, they weren't women, they weren't even black women, they were white men, and they portrayed them as Negro wenches. They also portrayed them as being wanting nothing but overly sexed and money. This was something that they portrayed. You had two options as a black woman on stage. You could either be a mammy, who was big, with big lips, heavy set, loud, and cared for the white woman's child, or you could be a temptress, who was, and they never said she was beautiful. They said she was desirable. They wanted what she had, but that's because what she had was considered not it was considered more of like a don't touch. You know, this is something that you can't really have, but I'm going to take. And so a black woman was never seen as a woman who was capable, who was gorgeous, who was smart and intelligent. She was always seen as someone who either took care of the white children and neglected her own, or the lighter or mulatto black woman was considered as greedy and oversexed and hypersexual, but not ever as beautiful. They played women who would yield, who would yell all the time at their spouses, who would act loud and inappropriate at any given time. But yet they did not do this to white women. White women were portrayed as sweet and gentle and quiet and docile and soft and beautiful. This formed our own concept as black people of how black women act. Have you noticed even ourselves, we will say, oh, she's so loud, or she's so disrespectful, or look at her with her angry self. We have taken on this whole false narrative that continues from the 1800s, even further back than that, and it is very harmful. This stereotype serves as a need, as the need wins during slavery, to keep Black women down and to sexually exploit the rape of our women, and portrayed us and painted us as Jezebels, likened to the Bible, a wanted woman who was promiscuous and uncontrollable, and she couldn't handle her own sexual desires. This would help wash away the cruelty that they did to us by raping us and keeping us enslaved. So they would say, oh, look at her. She is so amoral. She is so asexual. And so you would kind of take away from what they were truly doing to us, how they were truly treating us and harming us as a person. So I wanted to continue this narrative with my friend, and her name is Gay Paisley. And we're going to talk a little bit about how this narrative has hurt us as women. When did it first happen to us? And what can we do to push back on this narrative? So welcome my friend Gay Paisley with me. Be back in a minute.
Can you see it? 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 Because I can see it. CTV Weekly. Make sure you check us out every Thursday at 7 p.m. We want to see ya.
Okay, so this is my friend Gay Paisley, and she is just an amazing woman and has been such a great support to me since I've started this journey of speaking out against racism and all the things that involves. So Gay, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, like you said, my name is Gay Paisley. I am a registered nurse. I've been a nurse for 25 years. I am an award-winning artist. Activist. I am an artist and writer. I am also a mother, and it's really interesting today that we're talking about this angry Black woman narrative, because I have long used the strong Black woman narrative to fuel me when times were hard. And so we'll kind of talk about that and weave that in as well.
Absolutely. Well, that is so true. I know for me, I have been categorized as an angry Black woman, especially since I have been speaking out on social media and different areas about what I see the disparities that are continuing to happen in this country regarding people of color, and especially people that are Black or called African Americans. So I just wanted to ask Gay some questions, and we're going to get into a little bit of a conversation. So Gay, what ways have you noticed the stereotype playing of the Black angry woman playing in today's society?
Well, there's two things. One, it can work for us in some ways, and in other ways that it works against us. And so I do have to kind of just provide a little bit of history.
Right.
And so when I think of Mary Laura Nelson, which is the lynching that that was turned into a postcard that I did the research on.
Yes. She's a writer too. I don't know if you said that.
Oh, well, thank you. I think I did.
Okay.
But many Black women throughout history, whenever we speak up, we speak our truth, or we speak in our defense, we are considered angry Black women.
Right.
And that can sometimes result in our murders.
Absolutely.
Okay. So an example with Mary Laura Nelson, with that particular lynching, she said, "This is unfair, this is unjust." Woody Guthrie's father attended that lynching and gave him firsthand account of what happened. And her last dying words were, "Not my baby, not my son." But in the newspaper accounts, they describe her as belligerent Black woman. Okay, so that's one example. Mary Turner, which is another woman who was lynched. her husband was murdered. He was lynched. And she had the audacity, the overwhelming gall to say, this is wrong.
This is unjust. That's right.
And the next thing you know, they had hung her.
Yes.
They had performed a C-section on her.
Her baby out of her body.
Because she was 8 months pregnant.
She was.
Stomped that baby to death. You know.
Wow.
So, you know, just, and then let's bring it back to this century. Google black girls tased. And in every instance, what you will find is perhaps a black mother who is speaking on behalf of her children or her son. For example, I think there was a 7-year-old who was walking home from school.
Yes.
He must have thrown a piece of paper in
Someone's
somebody's yard, and
Yes.
the man assaulted her son.
Yes.
This woman calls the police, and the next thing you know, she is being arrested. She is being tased.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
young black girls at, 15-year-old little girl at a swimming pool party
Yes.
in a bikini, and you got police officers jumping on them. I mean, you know, and so
Yes.
all you have to do to be considered an angry black woman
Yeah.
is open your mouth against injustice.
Yes. Yeah.
Say Black Lives Matter
And see what happens.
and see what happens.
Yes.
You'll be considered an angry black woman.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't take a whole lot.
It does.
You know,
It does.
we're supposed to know our place and stay in that place.
Yeah.
So watch the atrocity, don't say anything.
Absolutely. Don't
Okay.
stick to it.
And, you know, you were talking about how they created this role about this angry black woman that persists today. And that role they made so real that it actually made white people feel sorry for black men.
Absolutely.
And there are social scientists who blame the emasculation of black men on black women.
Absolutely.
And they totally ignore the fact that as black women who were giving birth to babies who could be sold from them,
That's right.
husbands who could be taken from them,
And murder.
right?
Yes.
That, you know, we had to become this strong, you know, person. But for some reason, they seem to think that we have superhuman powers.
I
You
know.
know?
It's pretty amazing. It's pretty
Yeah.
amazing. You know, we hold the family together, and then we do it, and then we're taking over.
Right.
Right. To be a matriarch in the black community is a two-edged sword.
It's a two-edged sword.
It's that, you know, everyone loves a black mom,
Mm-hmm.
but everyone thinks she's in everybody's business. She's
too controlling.
She's too controlling.
Right.
All these types of things, and so you have this two-edged sword that we
Right.
constantly live with as black women.
Right.
So yeah, totally understand that. So when did you first hear about the angry black woman, and what was your thoughts?
Well, actually, the first time that I started hearing about this angry black woman was probably in my teenage years. And it was, black men don't like black women because they're so loud. Black women don't perform sexual favors. Like, I didn't get that memo. You know? Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
That's
We don't
my
do this,
husband.
right? Okay. And so it was always meant to bring us down.
Right.
You know, we were other. You
Yes.
know, we weren't attractive.
Right.
You know, and so that's when I first heard it. Start to kind of hear this angry black woman thing. So we weren't considered as attractive
Right.
to black men.
Right.
And I think that comes from that whole Amos and Andy
Yes.
Sapphire
Absolutely.
role
Yes.
of
Yes.
dehumanizing the
Yes.
black man.
Right.
And you ain't about nothing. You ain't, this,
And
that,
it was
the
done.
other.
And it was done on purpose. And we have to realize how perversive that was.
Right.
It was a tactic to actually keep us down, and then to keep us at each other,
Right.
where we were not on the same team, right?
Right.
And so if you put two people against each other, they didn't kill each other off, and then you good. You both of them gone, right? We don't have either one of them. So that animosity that keeps happening between the black man and the black woman is still happening today.
Oh, absolutely.
Still happening
Absolutely.
today. And I think it's so sad, and I think we need to understand that and push against that, push back against that. But you know what? I'm not going to allow that to happen. I'm going to support my man, but I'm also going to expect him to support me. I'm going to expect him to be there for me.
And I'm going to take that one step further. because I think that the people who created that stereotype are very aware that the civil rights movement, all those movements were started by Black women. Black Lives Matter is started by Black women.
That's right.
And so if they can give us this perception of always being angry, then you can dismiss whatever we have to say.
That's right.
You know, but what is the angry Black woman saying?
Yes, absolutely.
You know, she's speaking about injustice.
Yes, she is.
She's speaking on behalf of her children and future generations.
That's right.
And so I think that that's very intentional. Another example that I have had is, you know, of course, I have a diverse group of friends.
Right.
And I remember one of my girlfriends called me one day, and she's like, "Gay, my sister called me, and she told me you were being belligerent on Facebook." Belligerent? Yeah. This was before Black Lives Matter. Yeah. This was before, and I'm like, oh. And she's like, well, you know, you just really need to be cautious about how you present yourself because you never want to be, you know, come across as belligerent. I'm like, oh, really? With my educated self, you know, like I can't communicate.
Well, and the fact that they think that they have the right to tell us what to be, is so amazing to me.
Right.
Like I don't remember giving you permission to tell me how I'm supposed to act. But yet you think it's okay.
Right.
And so there is that thing of downplaying us, of us being, we've talked about this before, being the butt of the butt, right? So, you know, we're the last of the last. The Black woman
is
the bottom.
Right.
She's the mule.
Right.
She's the mule's butt is what she is, you know? And so it's interesting. And then when we stand up to them and go, hey, don't do that, then they go, oh, you're being divisive.
Right. Well, and you can absolutely not show any emotion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And still, just open your mouth and you go, well, what are you doing?
Right. So you have to be perfectly calm. Yeah. Please don't tase my son.
Yeah. It's pretty profound. It's pretty amazing. Amazing. Okay. And third and last question, I'm going to kind of deal with this a little bit. How has this been applied in your own, you kind of already talked about that, in your own experiences in society today? So kind of tell me some instances. You just did one, but how does that, I mean, I know I move different around different people because of this. I move different around different people. It was interesting. I was with my cousins and my sisters this past week in Vegas, and I go out of town with a lot of friends of different colors, a lot. But there was something very freeing about being with my Black sisters. Just hanging out, doing whatever, saying whatever, being whatever, without any code switches and any, I mean, it was really, and if we got mad at each other and cussed each other out, we did that too. Me and my sister, sometimes we'd be going, okay, but we did it, you know what I mean? And we didn't worry about, oh my God, is she not right anymore after this is over? Or is our relationship over with? You know what I mean? We just got done telling people each other out, and then we went and ate. Because that's what we do, right? And there was such a freeness about that. So tell me your experiences of this.
Well, goodness, I've had multiple. I think first it's really important to introduce Alice Walker's term for Black feminism, which is womanism.
Yes.
And it came from, you think, a womanist is, you think you womanish. And I've actually written something that's going to be published before the end of the year called Acting Womanish.
Yeah, awesome.
And so it'll be on my Facebook page. But I was actually, and again, when I say that it works for us and it works against us, I kind of want to talk a little bit about how it works for us.
Yes, right.
Rihanna and Beyonce are fabulous womanists.
Yes.
And they use their music to express that.
Absolutely.
I'm big Rihanna and Beyonce fans. With Beyonce, she's coming out of it, she's this African goddess and she's coming out and she's with a baseball bat, that's, angry Black woman. She got a reason to be angry. Yes. What is the Black woman angry about? Okay, so let's keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Playing on those stereotypes, like the Amos and Andy, once, I think I've shared this story with you. I was cursed in a church.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I was cursed with having the spirit of ghetto nigga bitch, lesbianism, and Jezebel.
All rolled up in one.
I'm like, But this was done this was done by Black pastors
Yes.
in front of a Black congregation.
Drinking the Kool-Aid and watching
Drinking Drinking
the Kool-Aid.
that Kool-Aid, girl.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I had to deal with that.
Yeah.
You know, and I, you know, just going through that experience. Anytime I have spoken for myself, and, you know, I have these varied experiences. I'm either, you know, like I'll walk into a home as a nurse and they'll be like, oh my God, you're so articulate. You know, I'm like, you know, what did you think 4 years of a college education was going to do? You know, like I was, you know, just what have you. Or it was, oh my God, she's so unprofessional. You know, and I'm going, you know, and a recent example is I had come back from vacation. I had, you know, specifically come back on a Friday so that I could take call for that weekend. When I found out on that Friday that I wasn't scheduled to take call. Well, who comes back from a Caribbean vacation on a Friday? So I sent a very nice email, which was not responded to. And then on that Monday, I went into the office and, you know, I just assumed maybe I had made a mistake. And so I was like, well, you know, I thought I was on call this weekend. And the response was, oh, the schedule changed. I was like, oh, okay. All righty then. Okay. So then that Wednesday, I was sick. And I sent a, you know, message and said this needs to be followed up on. And so needed to go to the doctor. And I got a message that said, would you please follow up on these things? I was like, well, okay, I called in sick, but if they're paying me, then yeah. Because, you know, if I already missed the weekend call, then I'm a single mom and I require, you know, money to, you know, feed my family.
Take care of your business.
And then that Friday, I get a call that says, no, that Saturday, you're on call. And I was like, I didn't know I was on call. And I was treated very harshly. It was like, I said, I'm more than happy to take call. Well, it's not about you being happy. It's about the fact that we depended on you. Well, now, all right, I need the money. I'm a single mom.
Absolutely.
So, okay, that's fine. Well, that Tuesday, I get an email that says that since you didn't know you were on call, we're not going to pay you. And I'm going, but I made myself available. And so I, you know, just, you know, typed a very professional letter. And I said, well, you know, these are the things that are happening. And they said, oh, it's just a miscommunication. Just come on in and talk to us. So with my intelligent, articulate, educated self, I walk into an office and I am speaking with 3 people in management. And, you know, I mean, based on what I've told you, you know that there were labor laws that were violated. You know, how often do you have people who are volunteering to take call, and you're totally ignoring these things? And they made the determination that I still wasn't going to get paid. So I then felt like I needed to write a letter to Human Resources. Again, I have my Master's of Fine Arts in Creative Writing. I know how to articulate myself and state my case.
Absolutely.
Not to mention the fact that 4 nurses at that particular company had told them that my equipment wasn't working. And I had to remind them that 4 people have told you my equipment wasn't working. And so I'm thinking, okay, so then I get a response. And not only, I mean, they paid me for everything, and that's not what I was asking. I could forgive some things, but I was just like, I'm just asking for that weekend from that 5 o'clock that I made myself available, and I didn't know I was on call, till that 8:30 that morning. And my daughter was like, Mama, I don't know if that's going to turn out right. And I was like, well, what were my options? My options were to keep my mouth shut, continue to work and not get paid, or to say something.
Absolutely.
And
speak to the injustice.
Speak to the injustice. And I did so in a professional manner.
I'm quite sure you did.
And then about 2 weeks later, I get called into the office and I am told that I am being terminated for multiple complaints. Well, I wasn't aware of any complaints. What I was aware of is that I had positive reviews on their social media site, which has since been taken down. Okay. And that Oklahoma is a right-to-work state, so they don't have to give you a reason.
They don't.
Okay? So by saying we've got all these multiple complaints, you've labeled me as an angry Black woman.
Yes.
Okay? When all I did was speak to injustice.
That's right.
And so speaking to injustice, speaking up for yourself.
Absolutely.
And I will say to this day that there's nothing else that I would have done differently.
Absolutely.
I did the right thing. I followed the right, but
absolutely.
it continues to affect us.
Well, and it's interesting because you would tell your story and people would go, oh well, are you sure?
Exactly.
Are you sure that that's really happened? But every single day, Black women and women of color experience these kinds of injustices that seem to maybe the majority culture like it's no big deal.
Right.
Like
certainly there was something else that had to go on.
Because it truly couldn't be just injustice.
Right.
It just can't be that.
Right.
And I remember dealing with when I left my job, and I did it the right way. When I worked at David's Bridal, and I remember, I probably shouldn't mention it, but I don't really give a fuck. But anyways, I remember turning my 2 weeks notice in, and then when they found out that I was going to a competitive company, they let me work that day and make several $1,000s for them. And then when I came back for lunch, they asked me to pack my bags and leave. And I was like, whoa, okay. And so we deal with these kinds of things all the time, right? One of the things I kind of want to finish up with is saying, women, Black women, don't accept that narrative. Don't accept the narrative of angry Black women as who you are, okay? We are Black women who have every right to get angry when it's needed. Right. Just because we're pushing back on something. Just because we're saying, hey, you know what, I'm not going to allow you to do that to me. I'm not going to allow you to talk to me that way. I'm not going to allow this. And so I am going to stand up for myself. So women, Black women, women of color, continue to stand up for yourself. Don't allow people to tell you you're angry when you're not. And then when you are, just be just as angry as you choose to be. It's your right. All right. Thank you for watching Race Talk with Retonia.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Great.